The myth of Chi Li is set in a kingdom by some mountains wherein a serpent lives. For the past 9 years, this serpent has been requesting maiden sacrifices, and the kingdom is completely terrified of the serpent and has tried to appease it with other sacrifices. But the only thing that has worked is the sacrifice of the maiden. So, every year, the magistrates of the kingdom go on a search for women whose death will have very little influence on their communities. So they end up choosing daughters of criminals and slaves. This myth begins in the 10th year, when Chi Li learns that the authorities will be searching her village for the sacrifices this year. She decides that she wants to volunteer. Her reasoning being that she is worth more to her family as a daughter as opposed to a son, dead and as a sacrifice, than she would be if she were living. Of course, her family says, "No, we love you. It doesn't matter that you're not a son." But she actively decides to defy them and volunteers anyway. The authorities very quickly agree to let her volunteer, as that means they don't have to search for someone they have to effectively kill. And she asks for 3 requests. The first request is that she, on the day, is given a serpent hound with a leash. The second request is that she gets a sword. And the third is that she has the freedom to use both of these on the day. Now the magistrates laugh and they say, "Oh, well, none of these will help you, but sure, you can have these 3 things." So, on the day of, they took her to the temple in the mountains where the serpent lives, and she had to go to the mouth of the cave and all of that, whereas the magistrates hid in the bushes and watched, expecting to see the maiden get gobbled up the same way she has been for the past 9 years. So, on this day, Chi Li brought with her a bag of rice balls, which she moistened and then flavored with malt sugar. And so what she did was she held the dog near her on the leash, and she had in a belt that she brought with her her sword, and she held the rice balls in front of the mouth of the cave, luring the serpent out. And then, by distracting the serpent with these rice balls, the serpent was so distracted by them that he didn't even notice Chi Li. She unleashed the hound on him, and the hound basically just distracted the serpent even more before Chi Li could go and stab the serpent, effectively killing it. Chi Li then went into the serpent's cave to find the bones and the remains of the last 9 sacrifices, and she collects those and put those into her bag with the purpose of having proof that she slayed the serpent, as well as the intentions of giving them a proper burial. The magistrates, who have watched the whole thing, see this and recognize that she is worthy for the king of their kingdom. And word spreads of her heroism, and ultimately she becomes the queen of the kingdom, and her family is in a better place socially, and she goes down in history as a great hero. And the kingdom is never bothered by another monster again. The source for this myth in our book is So Shenki, which is a record of researches into spirits compiled by Kan Pao in AD 317, but this is not actually when the myth itself came to be. It's actually much, much older than that. It probably predates the Qin dynasty, which was the first empire of China. And we don't know because within the Qin dynasty, all books were burned that were not about prophecy, medicine, or farming. So this is likely a very old myth, but we don't know exactly when it was from. Regardless, one can infer from the content of the story, as well as by studying the nature of society before the publication of Ken Pao's book, where we get this story from, that China at the time was a very patriarchal society wherein it would be somewhat unexpected to find a female heroine. It also becomes clear that they put a lot of value in ideas such as obligation and duty and honor. One example of the way that women were viewed at this time can be found in Lessons for Women. It really stresses obedience and selfless service, specifically in marriage and towards one's husband, but that can be extended to look at the way Qi Li behaves within this myth. This myth likely took place in the south of China, near where Guangzhou is today. When Qi Li makes the decision to slay the serpent, she decides to do so selflessly. She is completely willing to risk her death in the hopes that her kingdom, as well as her family, could have a better life, regardless of whether she is successful or not. I think that this is the only way in which she truly reflects the ideals shown in books such as Lessons for Women, in that she does act modestly and selflessly, and it is, in a way, her honor and her duty that brings her to do this, thus reflecting the ideals of society at the time. But at the same time, she does defy her parents, and she does not listen to them the way she should as a daughter of a family. But it is in doing so nobly and selfly, that makes her a hero. Qi Li is a hero because of how bravely and nobly she acts in the pursuit of making lives better for others, regardless of whether she lives. And she is also an interesting hero in that she doesn't have the same exact qualities that other heroes have. She does have those qualities, but she also is very creative and intelligent, and at the same time manages to fit within her place in society at the time as a woman, while still successfully saving her kingdom. The myth ends in a utopian sort of setting, in that there are no more monsters attacking it, in that all is well for the main character and her family and for the kingdom. Basically, anything that was wrong at the beginning of the myth has been fixed, and everything is, in some ways, a perfect society, given the state of the kingdom at the beginning. One thing that I thought made this myth specifically intriguing was the fact that there was no one who called Qi Li to do this, to save her kingdom. She just did it out of a sense of duty. She felt that she had to do it, she had the ability to do it, and so she should, for the sake of her kingdom and for the sake of her family, which is why she ends up volunteering. At the same time, when she exhibits this duty and this obligation towards her kingdom, she defies her parents and her duty to listen to them when they tell her that she should not sacrifice herself for the benefit of her family and for her kingdom. And I think that is part of what makes this myth especially interesting. It's that it's completely decided by her and no one else that all of this is going to end, and that she is going to be successful and change the course of this kingdom forever.